翔くん、あなたの思いは確かに受け止めならば私は。
Last time on the Eminence in Shadow, Sherry thanked Sid for his assistance and shared her plans to study abroad in Laogas. Despite wishing to get to know Sid better, she had no reason to stay and felt the need to take action with her limited knowledge. When asked what she needed to do, she just smiled and said it was a secret. As the summer break commences, the majority of students set off for their hometowns, but Sid elects to remain in the dormitory. Despite his initial excitement at the prospect of solitude, he soon realizes that he is at a loss for things to do. Just as he begins to feel restless, he receives a letter from Alpha mentioning a mysterious place called Lindworm. On the other hand, Epsilon is in high spirits and starts her day with a smile. She is reminded of her encounter with Shadow and how he had saved her and gifted her with the power of slime magic. The magic empowers her to alter her appearance, and she takes advantage of this by increasing the size of her bust. Beta, inspired by the bravery of Shadow, is in the process of writing a novel about Shadow saving a woman from the clutches of Xenon Griffey. However, after hitting a writer's block, Beta takes a break to clear her mind and heads outside. Coincidentally, she runs into Epsilon, who boasts about Shadow's recent infatuation with her, particularly her bust size. Beta, skeptical about Epsilon's claims, is told that their enhanced busts make them more susceptible to such glances. Epsilon playfully teases Beta, asking if she has received any similar attention from Shadow. Just then, Nu arrives to deliver a new directive from Alpha, bringing an end to the lighthearted banter between Epsilon and Beta. Iris and Alexia, eager to prepare for Alexia's journey to the Sacred Land, visit Gamma's store, where they are greeted by the friendly and welcoming Gamma, who introduces herself as Luna. Upon learning of their intentions, Luna offers to show them some common items for everyday use. However, when Alexia expresses interest in purchasing some lingerie, Iris is hesitant, but eventually gives in to Alexia's confidence and charm. Meanwhile, after the traumatic terrorist attack, Rose is overjoyed to hear that Sid is alive and rushes to find him. Upon seeing him covered in bandages, she realizes that his deep love for her must have been what saved him. She accepts his love and vows to give him her heart. As the two travel together towards the Sacred Land, Rose shares her hopes for their future, expressing her belief that with hard work and dedication, they can have a happy life together. As they journey on, Sid feels a sense of regret for not running to the Sacred Land, instead opting for the slower train ride. However, Rose reassures him and shares her hopes that he will be able to participate in the goddess's trial and earn her father's approval. She remains hopeful for their future, and together, they forge ahead towards the unknown, hand in hand. Wow, yet another girl has fallen in love with our protagonist. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. Will Sid ever reveal his true power? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now, back to the video. As Sid and Rose continue to explore Lindworm, they suddenly come across a display of keychains depicting a sword piercing a demonic arm. Rose explains the legend behind it, revealing that it symbolizes the moment when Olivier cut off the left arm of the demon Diablos. Apparently, the ruins known as the Sanctuary nearby holds the sealed left arm of Diablos. While strolling, Rose comes across a signing event of the author Natsume, who she is a huge fan of. They quickly line up and Rose expresses her admiration for Natsume's original and imaginative works. Sid takes a closer look at the books on display and notices titles such as Romeo e Giulietta, Asherella, Star Wars It's a Trap, One Purse, and Dragon Ball. However, as he flips through the pages, he realizes that these books are not original at all and are actually plagiarized. The thought crosses his mind that someone else may have reincarnated like him, and he decides to investigate. To his surprise, he discovers that Natsume is actually Beta, who used her wisdom to become famous by stealing stories. Sid recalls that Beta told him she loved literature, but he never imagined she would steal his own stories. Beta signs a book and hands it to Sid, stating that it contains all the details of the mission. Excited to see what Natsume wrote in her book, Rose eagerly shows it to Sid, but to their surprise, they find that the writing is in an ancient language, which Rose only knows a bit of. Sid speculates that Natsume wrote in this language because it is cool. Meanwhile, Alpha is standing next to Archbishop Drake's dead body, trying to piece together what he was hiding that led to his murder. Suddenly, Sid sees a man running on a rooftop and decides to stop him. The man attacks, but Sid easily blocks, and Epsilon shows up, taking out the man with ease. She reveals that the target was the cult's executioner, but he has gone into hiding. Epsilon informs Sid that they will be moving to Plan B, but Sid states that he will be proceeding with his own plans. At the start of the next episode, Sid's love for hot springs takes him to Lindworm, where he stumbles upon Alexia at the hot spring. To his surprise, she is a special guest for the annual Goddess's Trial, a fighting ritual where ancient warriors awaken to compete against challenges. Only those deemed worthy by the warriors can participate, and only a handful of people get to battle each other. Alexia explains she is not there to fight, but to investigate the murder of the Archbishop. Despite her offer to explain more about the situation if he joins the Crimson Knights, Sid declines, noting his aversion to looking at people at hot springs for comfort. Alexia assumes Sid is oogling her, but he clarifies he's not even looking at her. When Alexia comments on Sid's Excalibur, he stands up, stating that she shouldn't judge a book by its cover and that the true power of the Holy Sword lies in its unsheathed state. As Sid leaves, he sets Alexia's mind spinning with the mysterious allusions to his weapon. To clarify, he was talking about his crotch this whole time. With great anticipation, the new acting Archbishop, Jack Nelson, took the stage to make an important announcement. With a firm voice, he declared that the planned audit with Alexia had been cancelled. He explained that Alexia had been investigating the previous Archbishop, but unfortunately, he had since passed away, and they would now be focusing their efforts on investigating his death. The mood in the room shifted as the focus shifted to the highly anticipated Goddess's Trial. Alexia, now donning her Natsume Kafta personality, took her seat next to Beta. Despite the excitement in the air, Alexia couldn't help but feel annoyed at how much Natsume was beloved, leading her to speculate that those who were well-liked were often the most corrupt on the inside. Beta, on the other hand, had her sights set on Alexia, feeling frustrated that she had used Sid. And like Alexia, Beta also believed that Alexia was corrupt on the inside. As the trial began, the first contender, Tope Batirius from Oriana Kingdom, stepped forward. Two audience members behind Sid whispered to each other, explaining the rules of the trial. If a warrior was summoned, they couldn't leave the barrier around the arena until one of them was defeated. With a large fee to participate and the possibility of getting killed, the reward for winning was a commemorative medal, which would easily grant entry into any knight order in the world. Tope issued his challenge, but to no avail, as no warriors came forward to face him. The same was the case for Nex Tinline from Midgar Knight Order. Sid, meanwhile, was eager to show off his skills with Shadow. His eagerness sparked curiosity among the audience, who wondered just who he was. However, like Tope and Nex, Still Ain't Happenin' from Laugus Vigilante Corps was unable to summon anyone to face him. Despite the valiant efforts of the contenders, the trial was off to a disappointing start, with no warrior stepping forward to accept their challenges. Soon, it is Sid's turn. As Sid, aka Shadow, enters the arena, he is faced with a dilemma. On one hand, if he reveals his true strength, the ancient warriors may match it, exposing his true power. On the other hand, if he refuses to participate, he risks getting expelled from Midgar Academy for Dark Knights. But Sid is a clever one. He chooses a third option and uses a light distraction to jump into the arena as Shadow. Sid soon realizes that his opponent is the infamous Witch of Calamity, Aurora. Jack, Beta, and Alexia all have different opinions on Aurora, with Jack warning that she is the most powerful witch in history, while Alexia believes that Shadow's powers must have reached her level to summon her. The battle between Shadow and Aurora begins, and it's clear from the start that they are both relishing the fight. At first, Shadow is merely observing and dodging Aurora's attacks, but he soon realizes that she is holding back and defeats her with a single slash, wishing he could have fought her at full strength. As the battle ends, Shadow leaves, shocking everyone with his victory. The barrier breaks and a magic door appears in the middle of the arena, marking the end of the trial. As Sid ponders over his success, he suddenly notices a magical door appearing right beside him. Initially, he tries to move away from it, but as the door follows him, he realizes that he won't be able to escape its presence. Finally, resigning himself to the fact, Sid decides to venture into the door. Meanwhile, another door emerges in the middle of the arena, leaving Nelson perplexed. He speculates that the sanctuary might have responded to Shadow and that the door only appears for those who are deemed worthy enough to pass through it. Nelson promptly issues orders to evacuate the citizens and cancel the trial. He tries to convince Alexia and Rose to leave the area, but Alpha from the Shadow Garden intervenes and asks them to remain still until the door is closed. Alpha then steps into the door, leading the way. As Epsilon has defeated Nelson's guards, she declares that she will be accompanying them inside the gate. However, Nelson refuses and calls upon Venom, his guard, to eliminate Epsilon. Venom attempts to strike her with his sword, but Epsilon deftly dodges the attack. Unluckily, the sword slash cuts through her fake slime breasts, exposing her true form. In a bid to cover up her identity, Epsilon quickly reattaches her breasts and dispatches Venom with these. She then asks Nelson if he had seen anything, to which Nelson denies, keeping her secret safe. Epsilon then grabs Nelson and jumps into the door, followed by other members of the Shadow Garden who take Beta as a hostage. The door begins to close, but Alexia and Rose, determined to follow their friends, jump in at the last moment. As Alexia and Rose arrive at Alpha's location, Alexia tries to explain her fall, but Alpha quickly brushes it off and explains the significance of their current surroundings. He reveals that this is the place where Olivier, a hero, had cut off the left arm of the Diablos, and they are here to learn more about the cult. However, they are aware that Nelson won't talk. Alpha then points out a statue of Olivier, which surprises the girls as it depicts an elf woman. To their surprise, Alpha reveals that her face is identical to Olivier's, leading them to suspect that she was a possessed elf. Meanwhile, Sid finds himself in a room with Aurora. He questions her about his arrival, but she is just as clueless. She shares her memories of a fight they had, but her memories are incomplete. As Sid decides to head back, Aurora stops him and asks for his help. She reveals that she is wearing a straitjacket and that they both have the same goal of leaving this place. She explains that they are in a memory prison, known as the Sanctuary, created from ancient battles. To be freed, they must go to the center and destroy the magical core, but they must not use magic as it will be absorbed. Aurora and Sid agree to work together, and with their combined efforts, they hope to be freed from the Sanctuary. Aurora shares that once they are free, she will vanish into nothing. The journey ahead of them is uncertain, but they know that their goal is to leave this memory prison and start a new chapter in their lives. Alpha and the group continue their exploration of the facility, and Alpha sheds light on its past. He explains that the cult had once gathered orphan children for experiments, but most of them perished. Only a small group of girls managed to survive. Meanwhile, Sid and Aurora stumble upon a memory of a young Aurora, who is crying. To move forward, Aurora decides to confront her past and slaps the young version of herself, telling her that crying won't change anything. The memory shatters, and the group is transported back to the present. Alpha goes on to reveal that Olivier, one of the surviving girls, was deemed as one of the compatible children and was implanted with Diablos' cells. Nelson states that they had no other option as they needed power to fight the demon. Olivier was given the mission to extract new cells from Diablos, but no matter how many parts she cut, the demon still lived. The cult used powerful artifacts to immobilize Olivier's left arm and gained more Diablos' cells, which they used to create the red pills, but the side effects were too strong, and they needed to create a pill that would grant tremendous power and an ageless body. Alpha points to a man in the memory who is revealed to be the same man as Nelson. Nelson explains that the drug, called the Beads of Diablos, had 2 flaws. The first flaw is that they need to take the beads once a year or the effect will disappear. The second flaw is that they can only produce small amounts, which is why the Knights of Rounds only consist of 12 members. They believe the key to perfecting the beads lies in the demon's arm and the descendants of Olivier's blood. Alpha asks Nelson, calling him the 11th of the rounds, if her theories are correct. Nelson confirms and introduces himself as Nelson the Avaricious. But before he can continue boasting, Delta stabs him from behind, causing him to fall into the water. Nelson emerges from the water, breaking the memory and dividing the group into different sections. He multiplies himself, ready to face Alpha and Delta. What a way to end an episode. How will our group combat this menacing foe? Will Alpha and Delta make it out safely? Find out on our next recap of the Eminence in Shadow.